Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. A video here on Constellation DAG on the exchange. A unique one in that sense that the token name DAG also associates with the blockchain protocol or format that Constellation uses, which is direct acyclic graph. It's probably one of my favorite topics in blockchain in general. For those who have been following us on the channel for some time, you will know that for sure, because I like to talk all day long about it. But if you are new to crypto, or certainly trying to understand some of the blockchain aspects like direct acyclic graph, please do check out the video that I will leave at the end of this video, and there might even be something on the screen right now to remind you to have that in your watch later portfolio of videos. Before we go into this topic a bit further, please don't forget, of course, to try and smash that subscribe button that's right in front of you now if you haven't done so already, and do hit the like button as well if you enjoy the content. Not necessarily right now, but please feel free towards the end of the video or on your journey through this video to do so. Please do check out the other videos on the channel as well, loads of different topics, discussions. Please leave a comment below if you would like us to cover any kind of topics around other tokens, etc. I will do my best to get more videos out in the evenings once I'm back from work duties, so a bit more time in the weekends and the evenings when doing so. So let's talk about Constellation DAG now. I'm just going to first and foremost go into CoinMarketCap. You can see for yourselves when you come onto here, of course. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the traditional things that most people like to talk about, of course, the market cap at the moment, 164 million. It still does relatively good trading volumes on that 24 frame rate there in the left-hand side here. The other things to consider is the previous all-time high at 46 cents. This was back in 2021, the last proper bull cycle that we really had. Hopefully 2025 supersedes that. We'll have to see. Certainly well with most AI tokens that have been going around at this moment in time. The low times here for Constellation were also not too far off that 2021 area. Back in 2019, very much in its sort of launch phase. We'll be talking a bit more when we go into the chart detail on TradingView to discuss where we are currently with the price point, where it could potentially get to, and why I think this is actually one of the tokens that is of great interest. It's certainly something that should be on your watch list at the very least. And certainly I will delve into the facts of what's going to be going on in the next few years that makes this a really exciting acquisition to anyone's portfolio. We'll maybe look at some of the buy entry points as well, see where that plays in to our hands. So going very quickly, I'm not going to go into massive detail about direct acyclic graph, but I think it's actually kind of important when we look at the evolution of Constellation DAG over the last few years. Now, when I was first interested in this project, it was really about the DAG protocol, not so much the token name as such. That drew me in because I had a massive understanding with my career in the past and to this date in the AI sector, machine learning, deep learning. I've had experience and a career in IoT sector, as well as things like data capture and security. Yeah, the list goes on, right? More so recently, I've been able to add another bow, or string to the bow, sorry, in blockchain and crypto. I've been involved heavily for the last 4 or 5 years. And when I started learning about blockchain, I've told this story before, but if you're new to the channel, it might be interesting. When I was coming into fruition of investing into crypto for the first time around 2019, didn't really know what I was investing in, doing the usual thing, reading silly articles, watching YouTube videos, falling for traps, etc., back in the day. But once I started to go, it was around about 2020, ironically, and it was just before or just around that March 2020 drop. We were in lockdown. I had a lot of time on my hands in the evenings and at the weekends like everyone else, and I used that time. I did a diploma in blockchain cryptography on the back of this, but I was like, what is blockchain? And I started learning about it, and I started doing the dot connecting because of my experience and knowledge in AI and IoT and the understanding of blockchain, I was like, wow, this is how they're going to do it. I understand now. Because for those that don't know, I'm very into building knowledge and experience and expertise around like the United Nations Agenda 30 program, what the World Economic Forum's doing all the time. I've been following that really since 2015 when I watched the David Icke conference. He did an Agenda 21 one, and then in 2015 he did a new one based around Agenda 30, and it fell in line really with about 130 odd countries around the world signing this declaration for all the different pinpoints that Agenda 30 is all about. And a big part of that is the digitalization. You've got obviously diversification, sustainability, the list goes on. But digital finance was really interesting. He mentions great points about a one world government, a one world currency, digital currency. In fact, he was talking about that back in the 90s, which is mental, really. The concept of blockchain is not actually new. A great person that I know, he gave me a lot of information, a lot of research from back in the late 80s, where they had the calculations, they had everything ready, or the opportunity to do so. So we didn't have the computing power or the ability to turn that into, how can we make this a real world situation? So you fast forward to 2007 when the white paper of Bitcoin was created, etc., and then we fast forward to now. In the last sort of 5-6 years, blockchain took that step into being able to have a concept of pulling in all these things floating around here in the screen right now, things like data, the decentralization of infrastructure, tokenization, AI, you name it. And DAG, or Direct Acyclic Graph, is very exciting because it can actually not only utilize the power and the emphasis of blockchain, what it is, validation, processing, computing, storage, etc. It can also allow the ability for a substantial amount of transactions per second, but more importantly, the ability of those transfers of actions being incorporated within each other and allowing these different, I wouldn't call it industries, but different technical abilities, i.e. AI, Internet of Things, IoT. So this is anything that's connected or can be connected to the internet. It could be a washing machine, dishwasher, security cameras, light bulbs, smartphones, everything. Anything and everything connected to the internet. And when something is occurring, and I always use the example, some of you might be bored of it already, but it's one of the key simple ones that I can think of. Drones. Now, for the now and in the very future as well, things like harvesting and seeding in fields will be done by drones, if not already doing so, which it is. It can be done based on algorithmic data from AI to suggest what the weather is going to be, the trends of that, the trend of supply and demand, or real-time supply and demand. So you get a more efficient way of doing things, less wastage, less cost, because those transfers of actions are being paid with almost feeless blockchains. So we talk about like IOTA and Hedera, which probably are the most, I would say, closest competitors to Constellation. And then incorporating things like the transportation, the logistics, the machinery, everything's all on 4G, IoT, 5G, 6G, you name it, internet capacities, and it's all working simultaneously. To the point, even when we're buying things ourselves, we're pressing that buy button, it's linking up with the whole entire supply chain. And that is all being done simultaneously within seconds and being able to be accommodated by the technological advancement that DAG brings to the blockchain architecture. Sorry, you can see here in terms of the speed of Constellation, I mean, some chains and networks boast more than this, but the tests show 80,000 transactions in 7 seconds with only 6 nodes. That's quite phenomenal. And this is really important for scalability, by the way, because like here in the UK, we have the M25. This is the best way I can explain it. The M25 is a horrendous motorway in terms of rush hour traffic in general, and on days and times where you're like, what is everyone actually doing on the roads? Like, how is this so busy when it's supposed to be quiet? Anyway, you always hear people complaining about it. I guess it's the same a bit further up north with the, you've got the M4 can be a nightmare, the M40, the can't remember, 60 something from Manchester, Liverpool, you name it. And it's global, of course. Yeah, you all have your own roads, etc. But the M25 is always a standout, like, naming here in the UK. So traditionally 4 or 5 lanes, right? And in the 70s, I think, when it was built, it was a masterpiece. It was like, oh my goodness, we've got all this space. But what they didn't think about is population growth, the ratios of that trend of population, how many people will have cars, how many more people will have cars because they have kids, etc., etc. The list goes on. So we fast forward probably not even to now. It rush hour on M25, certainly since I was a kid, visiting grandmas, etc. So let's say at least 20 years later, the M25 was seen as a terrible infrastructure, and it is today. It's a nightmare in those terrible times. It doesn't really affect people too much in terms of just making it apparent that people can't get home earlier as possible, and things like this. Many other factors, of course, missing flights because Heathrow's next door, Gatwick's around the corner, blah, blah, blah. So we're talking about scalability is formulating that trend pattern in your mind, or the technology, building the technology or infrastructure to accommodate the future. So with blockchain, we've got this advantage with all these transactions per second and the big vastness of them, because I think Visa might have improved since the older days, but I'm pretty sure around about 2,000 to 7,000 transactions per second are allowed on Visa as a payment system. Now, of course, Visa and MasterCard will adapt to blockchain as they already are. You will see them in many crypto events, working alongside partnerships, etc., on ramping, you name it. So it's really important that we consider, not just now, not in 5 years' time, but also the 20, 30, 50 years' time. The ability to potentially scale up even further than that and evolve with computing aspects, calculations, making blockchain even more crazily fast and efficient in the future. But for now, it's boasting significant numbers. So this is where Constellation certainly becomes a really big opportunity. As I mentioned, IOTA and Hedera, they've got fantastic platforms, infrastructure, great teams behind them. IOTA doing fantastic things with the European Blockchain Commission right now to essentially be the framework for the entirety of the EU. Hedera is doing its own thing as well with loads of different sectors and industries. Absolutely phenomenal projects. They're two of my favourite for sure. Constellation is one I've been slacking on with accumulation, buying at silly prices. My average price, I think, at the moment is 9 cents. So go back to the chart in a minute and for sure, but it's around about 5.6 cents now. So I should really be accumulating more right now because I'm at half that price at least of the average. And certainly got a long way to go before the previous all-time highs and potentially higher. So when we're dragging in that question, is Constellation one that should be in our portfolios now, or are you still holding it, and should you be still holding it? Well, it's down to you, obviously, as an individual to make those thought processes for yourselves. But one thing I will say is that this protocol and technology is phenomenal, and these kind of projects like IOTA, like Hedera, with the exception of taking advantage of the recent rise, they're my long-term holds because I know what's coming. Hands down, I know what's coming. You can't stop it, and a lot of it will probably be really bad with the utilization of blockchain in the world, to be honest. Along with AI, there's a good and a bad side to it all, right? But as Raoul Paul says, and many others do, and including myself, which I've said for a number of years, is you can't stop what's coming, so invest in it. The ability of DAG is sensational. So you've got two really huge, I guess, or one in particular, huge case study with Constellation is the US Air Force. Going back to that point earlier about efficiency, about using AI for algorithmic data of supply and demand and things like that. Defense contracts, guys, as many of you know, are absolutely phenomenal, absolutely humongous when it comes to that. And you can imagine the privacy, the data security aspects, GDPR, big data, you name it, in the likes of the US Air Force would be phenomenal. So, when you're securing that aspect, audits, procurement, whatever it might be, data sets from internet devices, whatever it could be, military operations, anything. It's really important that is all, the integrity of all of that information is secure and private within blockchain. Another one is Alvarium project. This is really interesting. I will do a separate video on this, but this is heavily involved with all the things that are going on at the moment, particularly with AI, IoT systems. They very much, from my understanding with Constellation, it's to contribute to like the development of trust fabrics. I know it's kind of like a weird terminology in this paragraph here, but it is essentially helping with that auditing aspect and securing, I guess, like pipelines, for a better wording, for any area within the industries that they work in as well. So this is certainly one, because I think they do a lot of work with like Dell IT. I'm not sure if it's IBM as well, but it's phenomenal. It's a massive project within which Constellation is helping to power and service. So there's a few aspects there. That's just two examples. I'm just putting those two out because they're the most interesting ones to me personally in certainly my research over the years of Constellation. And I guess like with it being a possibility in our minds, like should we be holding this still? Well, my answer to that is, I've kind of already answered it to an extent, is we've got to look to the future of this. Okay, so what happens in 2025 happens, right? We might see an uprise with many of the crypto assets, not just Constellation, but pretty much all of them. Whether some of the legacy older ones hit their all-time highs again is another question. That's why we DCA in and out of things, right? But for me, by 2030, I think this could be phenomenal. We've got to understand that AI is very much in its infancy. Despite how many years I've been working with it, it's in its infancy, especially from mass adoption perspective and integration into companies. There are people being hired now to understand it more, to be able to incorporate it and integrate it within their companies and businesses and services, governments, whatever. Same with IoT. That's been around for years now. More and more devices than ever before. I think it's like something stupid. How many billions upon billions of devices now worldwide? Think of how many devices in your household are connected to the internet. And all this can be, connected, logistically with the likes of blockchain. Big data, of course, massive as well. So this is the infant stage. Yes, you can go and your memes, your AIs, whatever tokens that are massive right now, go and make your profits. You can still bring your money back into these for the future. But that's not my personal strategy. I've been accumulating for these a number of years with the anticipation that money that's going on and having fun elsewhere will eventually come into these anyway. But I'm having them at the lower prices rather than when they're coming in, because you're just kind of going around in a circle, in my opinion. But when you take those individual sectors as themselves, so we're talking about IoT, AI, etc., and you pull all those together and you're kind of giving a bit more of a dimension as to what is the actual market, or certainly the value of the market that Constellation DAG are going for. Well, first and foremost, just from the sort of basic information that I've got over the years, at the moment in time, I think the Internet of Things, the kind of market projection value is around about 714 billion last year, maybe in this year. It's quite heavy considering it's still early in its stages. But by 2032, it's going to be about $4 billion. That's humongous growth. That's a CAGR, I think, of like 24% something. Don't know the domino effects, but blockchain in general, I think this is far-fetched. I don't think this is fairly accurate, but around the actual market size of IoT within blockchain, this is, by the way, not blockchain or IoT individually, the integration of those two, 2.4 million by 26. Okay, so it's around I think about 258 million. So it's suggesting that it would be 2 billion by 2026. That's a massive jump in the space of 4 or 5 years. Blockchain with AI, in 2022, I know the numbers were around 358 million. By 2032, 3.5 billion. Humongous. That's again another 22% jump CAGR. And then big data. Big data is a bit of a weird one to kind of assess, to be honest, but from the information I've got, is by 2030 it would be around 470 billions worth. So actually, if we look at them as individual sectors overall, and I'm waffling here, IoT by 2032 will be worth 4 trillion. AI will be worth 1.8 trillion. I think it'll be a lot more than that, to be honest. Big data, 470 billion. Blockchain, 1.58 trillion by 2030. Now, that's a 7.96 trillion US dollar market, 2030. That's conservative in my opinion. 20 to 2032. 8 trillion by 2032, it says, sorry. That is huge. So I'm not saying that DAG and Constellation is going to take all of that. There's going to be a massive amount of projects, companies, businesses worldwide, including existing ones that will catch up, as well as new ones. But what it does is demonstrate the opportunity in the future. This is my point, that you can look at the charts now, but you also need to think ahead 5 years, 10 years down the line. How you do that in terms of accumulation is down to you. As I said, for me personally, I have been playing that strategic game of the long haul and accumulating where possible at lowest areas possible, and not even worrying about the market. Well, with DAG was a prime example. I didn't do any sales or anything with 2021. Yes, I could have made profits, but I didn't. That was my mistake at that time. But in this last bear market of the last 2-3 years, and even to today, I'm not going to be selling until I see really substantial returns. I'm here for the long run, irrespective of what happens this year. If it happens a big cycle this year, I will take profits for sure to reaccumulate. The 9 times out of 10 in this instance, it's going to be something exciting. Otherwise, I'm just going to leave it and accumulate back in the bear markets for those future programs. So the chart in front of us is demonstrating where we are today. So just bear in mind all those things we just talked about, all the potential future aspects, the real-time processing, the data integrity, the security, the efficient data storage, the transfer of it, the interoperable aspects of DAG technology, the efficiency, everything, and all those other sectors, and we pull it into our thought process for the chart here in front of us today. So currently, 5.6 cents is where the price is sitting with DAG, Constellation DAG on the chart. Now you can see in the past, not too far away, but March 2024, so near enough a year ago, we were trying to accelerate past that sort of 8 cent mark. There's something that we tried to do more recently as well at the beginning of December. It failed, it came back down, like the rest of the market has the last few weeks as well. Excuse me. The excitement of DAG nearly broke my throat. Been talking too much. So, where we are right now and where we have been in the past, say in 2021, with that magnificent 46 cent mark, that is huge. And in fact, this was the last time I drew probably the price range. So let's just move it to today's price point and up to that previous all-time high. We're talking about a whopping just under 800% increase. Now, the anticipation I had in previous DAG videos, I don't even remember the last one I did, but the next target price up there would be 72 cents and potentially $1.21. Now, conservatively, I think that we could definitely get to our previous all-time high. Where we could get to next, conservatively, I think we could get towards that 73 cent mark if 2025 as the run that people perceive it will. However, the narratives at the moment are so purely focused on AI. I think gaming will have another run for sure. Will we get back to these previous legacy ones, or will it be in the future when we see the full adoption, the full integration of these? Because it's had its fun time in 2021 almost, with a lot of the other projects have done similar. It's gone quiet because it's almost kind of boring. I don't find it boring. I find it amazing, but the narrative is boring because, oh yeah, we talked about that, but nothing's happening yet, so let's come back in the future. So if that plays out or not, that's conservative. This one up here, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure if we'll go and break the dollar barrier in 2025. Certainly in 28 and maybe 2030, but I'm not sure. But I've earmarked it anyway, because if we do hit that from the current price point, guys, that's 2,200%. That's phenomenal. To be buying Constellation at 5 cents And for it to even get to the 70, let alone the $1.20 marks in the fib levels, phenomenal. However, let's come back down to earth just briefly, and we'll go into the moments that we see today. I'm just going to quickly clear that price range chart. I'm going to not move, but I'm going to stretch this one across, the one that's down here, just all the way across here. It's not too far out. So you see we're actually not too far off this. And what I need to also do is just adjust that to one of the most higher points here. So, sorry to the previous chart, but we've still got this old one here anyway for the benefit of showing you how close this is in terms of being able to measure and monitor where we could be going in charts. So, all the way back here in 2023 to where we are now, the one I've just stretched across. One of the previous high points, one of the recent low points. I'm just going to make that a bit more accurate. Keep that one as it is. I'm just going to leave it there because that's based on a higher low than these ones here. But if you look closely, you can see we are not too far off these bigger structures on the midterms as well as the most shorter terms or macro levels that we're seeing today. What we can see within this is if we're talking about that projection of, say, 46 cents as the previous all-time high, we first of all got to get through these barriers. This is a big process, guys. This is like a good few months worth of progress that needs to occur. First and foremost, we need to retest that 10-cent mark. We need to stabilize on it. That means fluctuating up and down around that area for maybe a couple of days or weeks. And depending on the testament of the narratives, the emotions of people at that time, or the FOMO potential when the mass audiences kick in, that's where we could start seeing it push up to those 13 cents and 20 cent marks or thereabouts. These levels match up quite nicely with some of the longer term patterns that we saw back here in 2022. So 23 cents is definitely an area of resistance, as is the 28 cent mark, which is not far off at all. These new lines that we've got in here, 28, 29 cents. So when you're placing your orders for buying and selling, you don't necessarily want to go on these lines directly because they're not 100% accurate. This is why you kind of take maybe a give or take a minus plus scenario, right? What I mean by that is if we got a fib line here at 22, I probably want to be doing some sell orders maybe around, or DCA orders of buying and selling, whichever way it's going, around the 18 cents and probably like 24, for example, just to try and hit the two areas above and beyond. Some people get annoyed when it goes flying up further. Well, this is why you have your limit orders at certain different sectors and you just wait. For me personally, I just put my orders in and I leave them. I don't touch them. If they come in, they come in. If they don't, they don't. You can put limit stop orders to stop it from going down too far to take profits as well. So there's loads of different strategies and things you can put in there, which you see with integrations of charts. So at the moment, as I just mentioned, Constellation's got a long way to go. So first and foremost, accumulation points are really interesting. It's 47 and 49 on the RSI's bottom left here, on 14 and 28 day close respectively. It's still too middle ground for me personally. I want to see that coming down to around 45 or 40 on either of those to have a bit more of a bite point of purchasing. The other argument to this, depending on how many you're accumulating, is to say, well, actually, whether it's 5 cents, 6 cents, 4 cents, doesn't really matter too much. If you think that it's going to be going to 45 or even 70 cents, what does it actually matter, really? The difference in general is not huge unless, of course, you're putting significant volume of capital or money into this. It makes a big difference for sure. But 5 cents to 45 cents or 6 cents to 45 cents is still a massive gain, right? Or even at 4 cents. Of course, you're going to get more tokens at 4 cents rather than 6. Do the maths, right? Not hard. So we're currently playing in these areas. As I said, it's not too much of a difference, so I might just pull the trigger anyway, but it's just the principle I've had the strategy for many years in that kind of coordination of the RSIs. They're really important indicators for the buying and selling modes. So we're playing around this area. This is where we need to consolidate around that 5.8 cent mark and start retesting these higher levels again. When and how that's going to happen, I'm interested to see the whole Trump situation, because kind of Constellation do boast themselves as like America's favorite DAG protocol or blockchain or whatever. That's partial nonsense, but equally, it's got a power opportunity for sure. And because of Trump's love for America, the USAF, of course, like many Americans, and rightly so, fantastic, pilots, etc., and teams. That could be something that switches. It could be like, oh wow, okay, the US defense contracts are back in, and what's the new technology that's powering all this kind of stuff? And when blockchain is involved, people will be rushing to go, what blockchains are partnering with USAF? That could be a humongous uplift in the market for the DAG token. That's just one example, guys. I'm just saying one example, but it's that principle of always thinking ahead. What are the what ifs? Like, if this happens, what could happen? If this doesn't happen, what could happen? So that's why you have your DCA opportunities, your buy orders and sell orders at various different places, and then you're in a good strategy, you're good mindset. It's not financial advice to say buying now, but that's my principle, that's my thought, that's my opinion, and that's what I'm doing, and it has worked well so far. I'm trying to bring that average price down for DAG. By the way, the average I mentioned earlier, 9 cents, I think it was even higher than that. It was like 20 odd cents. So I've done well to bring it down by at least half again. I want to bring it down another half, and put it back into a bit more of a break-even formality right now, so we have a good run potentially in 2025 or in 4 or 5 years' time, and I'm not in that negative scenario again. This video has been quite long, guys. I do apologise, but I just think it's important. It's one of those that's a really interesting project and protocol and topic. It's certainly one where I think that it has massive opportunity in the future. Whether in 2025 or not is another question, but I will keep a firm eye on this. I'll do some YouTube shorts as we go along if anything specifically happens with DAG that's interesting, and I'll do another recap video probably in the next month or so of Constellation DAG's token, if we do the similar price moves as well. Let us know in the comments below if you've been holding DAG for some time or if it's a new concept to you. As I said, go and check out the direct Acyclic Graph introductory video that I did a while back to give you an explanation as to what I'm waffling on about for the last half an hour. And also the other projects of IOTA and Hedera are always good to follow, because I do honestly think that these three have a huge advantage over a lot of other blockchains. Not so much for building us on networks and developing on them as such, because they are definitely powerful for that, but I think the technology capability of them opens up more doors for the real world utility than many others do not. So thanks for watching, guys. Sorry it's a long one. Hopefully you found it fun. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We'll see you in the next DAG video. Take care. Bye bye.